Do not try this at home if you do not have experience in stripping carbon parts. You can ruin the parts in seconds and risk your life if you continue to use these parts.
Oh hi, I'm back on YouTube in my studio after a long time in a new environment. Feels good to be here, to see you again. So let's do a little test talk, and if you do custom painting as well, you know what's a huge pain in the ass and what's the most annoying part when it comes to custom painting. It's stripping the old paint of these carbon frames or carbon helmets or whatever you like to paint. You have to be very careful not to damage the carbon surface. Sometimes it takes hours, sometimes days, but maybe I found the holy grail to make this job much more faster and efficient. So let's talk about this little thingy. And what's inside the box is a random orbital sander, but that's not a review. I won't tell you that this is the best machine. I paid the full price of $550. Yes, it hurts. So that will be a roast. Let's unpack it, let's roast this machine, and let's find out if it's able to do the job. We live in a world where you can connect your smartphone to everything, even to your toilet paper, to measure the density of your big poop. And yes, of course, you can connect the smartphone to this orbital sander. So let's try it. And what I have to do is I have to push the plus button and the on-off button. So Bluetooth is activated. And now I have to add the tool to the smartphone app, the Mirka app. And yeah, it can't be found, so I have to start the process. And I have to try again. And here it is. And we are done. Yeah, and that's the first time I'm really pissed, because what this Mirka smartphone app does is collecting and stealing your private data. You have to activate the location settings in the smartphone if you like to run the app. And the only thing this app does is collecting the runtime of the orbital sander and the RPM, also the vibration, and giving it to Mirka. It's absolutely useless. You can't do anything with this app. And that's not fair. And guess what happens if you have any warranty issues? Yes, they say we have your data of the machine. And yeah, that's not fair. They don't need your location. And if you don't use the app, the machine collects this data anyways, because there's a chip built inside which measures the runtime and the RPM. And yeah, I think that's not fair collecting this data, but that's my personal opinion, and that makes me mad. Yeah, stealing private data with a smartphone app is one thing, but let's find out if this machine's good for anything. And yeah, seems we have a $550 bottle opener. Cheers! But let's be serious, I bought this machine for sanding, that's what it's made for. And I bought also different sanding discs, like these Iridiums, and also the AutoNet. That's the cheaper version of the AbraNet. So let's put them on and let's find out how fast this machine can strip color. I will test the AutoNet with 120 grit, which is really rough, so I have to be very careful. That's a net sanding pad, and it minimizes the dust in the workshop because the vacuum cleaner can work much more efficient than using a standard sanding pad. I will use also these Iridium pads with a 120 and 180 grit. These are standard sanding pads but covered with Iridium, and if they work well I will use them also because they are cheaper than the AutoNet or the AbraNet. And what I'm also using are these soft pads. They are good for round shapes like these bike frames I'm working on, and what I have to do is I have to place them on the orbital sander in between the sander and the sanding pads, and I'm good to go. This carbon frame is a good example why I'm using these soft pads. It has a special shape with a lot of edges like here and here, and these pads follow the shape of the edge and minimize the chance to sand through these carbon layers and to damage the frame. The big question is the Mirka Deros orbital sander the holy grail of carbon stripping? Maybe if you do helmet sanding, a round shape like a sphere, but not if you do these carbon bike frames. There are these typical spots and issues on every of these frames, like in between the down tube and the top tube, on the cable entries, on the bottom brackets and on some more areas. There's still color on the frame, there's no chance to reach it with the Deros or with any other of these orbital sanders. That's the same with all of these machines. But maybe you wonder why this frame looks like a cow. There's a reason for that. I didn't remove all of the primer because I have to re-primer the frame anyways prior to painting. So I left some of these spots. It's not an issue with the machine. It's because I have to re-primer the frame. If I like a raw frame, I have to remove all, of course. I made also a list with all of my pros and all of my cons regarding the Deros. So let's check them out and maybe I can give you a hint if you should buy it or not. Let's start with the bad things, and one of the bad things is the price. You have to invest $550 in October 2022 if you like to own a Deros, and compared to other brands and other machines, that's very expensive. But what's really ridiculous is the Mirka app. In my opinion, it's a scam and I recommend don't use it. What's also a contra is the size of the machine. As mentioned before, there are spots on the frame I couldn't reach, and that's exactly the reason why the Deros can't be the holy grail of carbon stripping. I have to do some areas by hand, but compared to other solutions like a media blasting cabinet, it's very cheap because a media blasting cabinet costs 10 times more than the Deros, so maybe this machine can be a choice for you if you don't want to do hand sanding. But be very careful, you can ruin these parts in seconds if you use these machines wrong. Now let's check all the pros and the reasons why I bought the Deros. And one of the reasons is the weight. It weighs only 0.8 kilogram for the electric version. The one with the air supplies is lighter, but I like the electric version more because it gives you much more opportunities if you don't have air supply in your shop. What's also very good is the power range. You have a power range between 4,000 and 10,000 RPM, so you can sand nearly everything from plastic to metal. And as mentioned before, I like a small RPM range of only 4,000 when I sand carbon, so I can be very careful, I can do fine sanding. And what I'm also using is the 2.5 mil orbit, not the 5 mil orbit. The 5 mil orbit is for woodworking, and when you like to do fine sanding like on carbon parts, you have to use the 2.5 mil orbit. What's also nearly perfect is the dust collection, and that's also the big reason why I bought this machine. I use the AutoNet and the Iridium discs, and with the AutoNet I have a dust collection of nearly 95%, and you can see it. I'm wearing a black shirt and then I have no dust on my clothes. And imagine I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in my shop of cameras, laptops, lighting systems, compressors and all of these things, and when I cover them in dust I will ruin them, and that's the reason why I bought this machine. The dust collection is nearly perfect. Even with these Iridium discs you have a dust collection of 75 to 80%. It's not only good for your health, it's also good for your shop and all the machines and parts you have in your shop. What's also very good, and the reason why I bought it, is the durability. And now you will say you have it for one day. What can you say about the durability? And what I can tell you is I have another of these Mirka sanders for 8 years now. I had no issues, and I hope it's the same as the Deros. So yeah, that's the reason why I can say the durability is good. I hope it will be good. For this machine it was good, and maybe it's the same for the Deros. What's also very good is the time I have to spend in sanding. I had to invest 1.5 hours for the complete frame, and compared to hand sanding it's maybe 10 to 15 hours, so you can save a lot of time. But be careful and listen to what I say. You can ruin these parts in seconds if you use these machines wrong, and yeah, you can risk your life and you can ruin these parts. So follow my instructions if you like to use these machines and if you like to save time. It's not easy. If you want to go the easy way, do hand sanding or invest in a media blasting cabinet. What I love the most on the machine, and that's very simple. Most of you know that I'm a lefty, and as a lefty I hate when the switch on the machine is on the wrong side. That's on most of these saws the case, and it's a really health issue if the switch is on the wrong side. You can hurt yourself if you use these machines. And on the Deros, the switch is on top. That's perfect for lefties, also for right-handed persons. And this is not only a switch, that's also a throttle, and the biggest reason why I bought the machine. Let's check it out. You can control the RPM range with the throttle. And imagine there are spots where you have to be very careful so you can lower the RPM range, and that's needed when you like to do carbon sanding, and that's the most important thing on this machine and one of the biggest reasons why I bought it. Would I buy it again? Yes, of course. It's my second Deros or my second Mirka sander. Can I recommend it? You have to choose yourself if you want to buy it or if you want to buy a cheaper machine. That's my choice. That's what I use for carbon sanding. What I have to do now is some media blasting, but that's much more expensive. You have seen it in some of my videos. I remove some of the color on this frame, and when I've done that, we will see us in another video, painting video, maybe of this frame, maybe of a helmet. Stay tuned and see you in the next one. Goodbye.